The unexpected encounter. The vast emptiness of space stretched endlessly around Captain Even West. His ship, the Voyager, had been drifting for hours after a devastating collision with a rogue asteroid. He had been exploring the outer reaches of space when it happened. 1 minute, everything was fine. And the next, his ship was tearing apart, sending him spiraling toward an unknown planet. His systems were failing, and his communications were dead. Even could barely believe it. He was stranded, alone, in the middle of nowhere. His only hope now was to try and repair the ship, but the damage was too severe. He had no tools, no supplies. The thought of survival was slipping away fast. As he gazed out of the cracked viewport, Even saw something he hadn't expected. A bright light flashed in the distance. At first, he thought it might be a trick of the light, his mind playing games due to the long hours of isolation. But then, the light grew stronger and closer. It wasn't a star or any ship he recognized. Suddenly, a strange, sleek vessel appeared, silently gliding toward his wrecked ship. It wasn't human. That much was clear. The ship's surface shimmered in the dim light of the dying sun, like it was made of liquid metal. Even froze, unsure of what to think. He had heard stories of alien life, but he never imagined he would come face to face with it. The strange ship slowed down and hovered just above the Voyager. The air around Even seemed to vibrate, and a low hum filled the cabin. Then, without warning, a hatch opened on the side of the alien vessel. From it, a figure stepped out, floating gracefully down to the ruined deck of Even's ship. The alien girl was tall and slender, her skin glowing faintly like the moon. Her eyes were large, dark, and shimmering, almost as though they could see into his soul. Her hair was like flowing silver strands that seemed to move on their own, even though there was no wind. She wore a tight, reflective suit that blended perfectly with the shimmering light from her ship. Even didn't know what to do. His first instinct was to reach for his weapon, but he quickly stopped himself. The last thing he needed was to provoke whatever this being was. He swallowed hard, his heart pounding in his chest. He wasn't sure if he should run or just stand still. "Are you human?" Even asked cautiously, trying to keep his voice steady. The alien girl tilted her head slightly, her eyes studying him. Then she spoke in a voice that seemed both distant and close, like it echoed from the farthest corners of his mind. "No, I am not human. I am from the Xiran people. You are in trouble," she said, her tone oddly comforting, though the words were alien to him. "Your ship is damaged. I can help." Even didn't know whether to trust her. She had appeared out of nowhere, and everything about her seemed otherworldly. But he had no choice. His ship was barely holding together, and he had no way of fixing it alone. He took a deep breath. "You can help?" Even asked. "What do you want in return?" Her eyes glinted for a moment, but then she smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was something more mysterious, like she knew something he didn't. "I offer my help, but I need something in return." Even's heart skipped a beat. The way she said it made him uneasy, but he couldn't turn her down. "What is it that you want?" "I will repair your ship. I will clean the systems, make it as good as new. But I offer something extra," she said, stepping closer. There was an almost playful tone in her voice now, like she was teasing him. "Extra services?" Even repeated, confused. She nodded, the smile never leaving her face. "Yes, I can offer you more than just repairs. I can help you survive. I can help you return to your people." Her voice softened with the last words, as if to reassure him. Even took a step back, his mind racing. This felt wrong, but at the same time, it felt like his only chance. He was stranded on an alien planet, with no way of contacting Earth. What other choice did he have? "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, his voice uncertain. "What kind of extra services are you offering?" The alien girl's smile widened, but she didn't answer right away. She reached out with one hand and a soft blue light began to glow from her fingertips. Even watched in fascination as the light seemed to move over the damaged parts of his ship, gently fixing broken panels and restoring systems that had been offline for hours. "I can help you in ways you don't yet understand," she said cryptically. "The question is, what will you do with the help I offer?" Even watched in awe as the ship slowly started to come back to life. The ship's systems hummed back online, lights flickered, and the communications panel suddenly sparked with life. The alien girl's actions were incredible. He had never seen technology like this. But despite the miracle unfolding before him, Even couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to this than what she was letting on. The strange way she spoke, the cryptic offer, it all felt like a puzzle, and Even wasn't sure whether he was a piece or the prey. He stared at her, trying to decide whether he should trust her or not. The question hung in the air, unanswered. What did she mean by extra services? And what was she truly offering? Even was about to speak again when the girl turned, looking toward the horizon of the alien planet. She seemed to be sensing something, and a frown crossed her face for the first time. "You must decide quickly," she said, her tone suddenly serious. "Time is running out. Others are coming." Even's heart raced. Who else could she be talking about? And why did she sound so urgent? The alien girl glanced back at him, her eyes filled with a mix of warning and something else. Something deeper. "You're not alone out here, human. And neither am I." With that, she turned away, her figure disappearing into the shadows of the ship's interior. Even stood frozen, more questions racing through his mind than ever before. Who was she? What did she want? And most importantly, could he trust her? The mysteries were just beginning. Unseen intentions. Even stood there, staring at the spot where the alien girl had disappeared, his mind racing. The hum of the Voyager's systems returning to life was a small comfort, but it didn't quiet the growing unease in his chest. Her words echoed in his mind. Others are coming. Who could she be talking about? Were there other aliens on this planet? And why did she offer her help so freely, too freely? There had to be something more, something she wasn't telling him. As he moved cautiously toward the control panel, the spaceship's main lights flickered and stabilized. The once dark, silent interior of the ship now buzzed with life, but the eerie stillness hung in the air. Even ran his hand over the console, still processing everything. He couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't just repairing his ship. She was setting something in motion. Minutes later, the alien girl reappeared, silently gliding back into the cockpit area. She stood a few feet away, her large eyes watching him. Her expression was unreadable, but there was something in the way she held herself that suggested she was waiting for something. Even tried to steady his breathing. He had to be careful. Her appearance was unsettling enough, but her offer of extra services raised more questions than answers. She was repairing the ship so fast, fixing systems and panels in ways that seemed almost magical. It was beyond anything human technology could do. Yet there was something undeniably alien about her, something that made Even question her true motives. "How do you know how to fix all of this?" Even finally asked, trying to keep his voice neutral. The alien girl tilted her head, her silver hair shifting in the dim light. "We, the Chirin, understand all technology. We know the structure of ships, whether they are of our kind or not." She paused, her gaze lingering on the console in front of him. "We don't need tools. We simply know." Even frowned. There was something about her tone that felt rehearsed, like she had said this many times before. But then, she said something unexpected. "You have questions. You want to know my true intentions." Her voice was calm, almost soothing, but there was an underlying edge to it. "You fear me, don't you? But you need my help." Even didn't speak for a moment. His heart hammered in his chest. How could she know what he was thinking? He had barely given voice to his doubts. He cleared his throat, trying to maintain control of the situation. "I'm not afraid of you, but I can't help but wonder why you're here. Why offer your help to a stranded human? What's in it for you?" The alien girl's eyes seemed to darken for a split second, and even wondered if he had pushed too far. She stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming, as she reached out to touch a control panel. A soft, almost melodic hum filled the room as the ship's repairs continued. "I do this because I need your cooperation. You are not the first human to stumble upon this planet, but you are the first one to be in this position." Her words were cryptic, and Even felt a knot form in his stomach. "The others who came before you, they were not so fortunate." Even blinked, trying to grasp what she meant. "What do you mean? What happened to them?" Her expression remained unchanged, though her voice grew softer. "They didn't listen. They did not understand what was at stake." There was a long silence between them. Even's mind raced as he tried to make sense of her cryptic words. Could she be referring to other explorers, or did she mean something more? Her warning hung in the air like a shadow. The others didn't listen. Before Even could ask more, the alien girl turned sharply, as if sensing something far beyond his understanding. She went to the viewport, peering into the distance as though she could see something invisible to him. Her body tensed, and her eyes flashed with an intensity he hadn't seen before. "They are coming," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. Even followed her gaze. The sky outside seemed calm, too calm. He didn't see anything unusual, but the urgency in her tone made his heart race again. "Who's coming?" he demanded, his voice more forceful than he intended. Her gaze snapped to him. "The Orsai. They are not like us. They do not care for diplomacy. You don't want to encounter them." Even felt a chill run through him. The Orsai. He had heard that name in passing, in reports about distant, hostile alien factions, but he had never imagined he would be caught in the middle of one of their wars. His mind spun with questions, but he couldn't find the words to voice them. "Who are they? And why are they after me?" he asked, trying to understand the situation. The alien girl finally looked away from the viewport, her expression unreadable. "They are relentless. They seek only conquest. They are drawn to human life, and once they find it, you will not escape. They will destroy everything in their path." A heavy silence filled the room as Evan processed the gravity of her words. His thoughts raced, but one thing was clear. He was caught in something much bigger than a simple repair mission. The alien girl had offered him help, but now it seemed that help might come with an enormous cost. Even took a deep breath. There was no going back now. He had to trust her, at least for the moment. But there was a nagging feeling in his gut that said nothing about this situation was as simple as it seemed. "What do I need to do?" he asked, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding in his mind. The alien girl looked at him for a long moment before answering. "You need to prepare. We need to get off this planet. And you need to trust me, because once they arrive, nothing will be the same." Even swallowed hard. The stakes were higher than he could have ever imagined. He didn't know what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. Whatever happened, this was just the beginning. As the alien girl moved to continue her repairs, Even couldn't shake the feeling that his survival depended not just on fixing his ship, but on understanding the secrets she was keeping hidden. Secrets that, if left untold, could change everything. The mysterious communication. Evan's hands shook as he gripped the control panel, his thoughts spiraling. He was caught in a web of uncertainty, surrounded by unknowns. The alien girl had offered her help, but it wasn't just her intentions that were unclear. Her cryptic words echoed in his mind, and the growing sense of urgency in her voice made him realize that something far bigger was at play than just getting his ship back into working condition. The strange silence of the ship's interior felt suffocating as he glanced at the alien girl, still hovering near the ship's main console. She had resumed her repairs, her movements smooth and practiced, but there was something in the air that felt off. It wasn't just the threat of the Orsai coming to destroy everything. It was the way she was acting, almost as if she knew something that Even didn't. For the moment, he had no choice but to trust her, But his mind was already racing with questions. Suddenly, the soft beeping of the communication system broke through the tension, and a sudden, harsh static filled the air. Evan's heart skipped a beat. He hadn't even realized the comms were still operational, but the signal on the screen was unmistakable, a message coming through from deep space. The alien girl paused and looked over his shoulder at the flickering display, her eyes narrowing as she studied the signal. There was no mistaking it. This was a distress call. A human distress signal. Another human outpost. Evan muttered to himself, hardly daring to believe it. Could this be a lifeline? Maybe there were other survivors out there. Other humans who had made it through the chaos. He could barely hide the hope creeping into his chest. "Let me handle it," the alien girl said softly, her voice almost a command as she moved closer to the console. Evan hesitated, watching as her slender fingers hovered over the communication system. He didn't trust her fully, but for some reason, the calmness in her presence made him reluctant to intervene. The signal seemed to intensify as she connected with it, the static growing louder until it abruptly cleared. A strange, distorted voice crackled through the speaker. "Mayday. This is Commander Ella. We're under attack. The Orsay. Please, anyone, respond." The message cut off abruptly, replaced by more static. Evan's pulse quickened. Commander Ella. The voice sounded familiar, desperate, as if she had been fighting for her life, just like he had been. He tried to connect to the signal, but the alien girl raised a hand to stop him. "Wait," she said, her tone urgent. "There's more to this signal than you understand." Evan's eyes darted between her and the screen. "What do you mean?" "This is a human distress signal. Someone else is out there." She turned to face him, her expression darkening. "You do not understand the Orsay. If they are involved, then the message is not a call for help. It's a trap." Evan froze, his heart sinking. A trap. Yes, the Orsay do not simply attack. They manipulate, deceive. "This signal may be a lure," she explained, her voice grim. "They want you to respond. They want you to reveal your position." Evan was taken aback. His mind struggled to process what she was saying. He had never heard of the Orsay using distress signals as traps before. Everything he knew about them was based on fragmented reports. Merciless invaders, hunters who only cared for destruction and conquest. But this was different. He couldn't shake the thought that there was something more behind it. "Then why would you help me? If this is all part of some plan, why fix my ship and help me escape?" Evan asked, his voice low, filled with suspicion. The alien girl didn't answer immediately. She seemed lost in thought, her fingers tracing the edges of the console. Finally, she turned back to him, her eyes locking onto his. "Because I'm not just helping you escape. I'm helping you survive. If the Orsay know you are here, they will not stop until you are destroyed. They will burn this ship and everything around it. You need to get off this planet. And fast." Her words hit Evan like a punch to the gut. He had no way of knowing if she was telling the truth or not. His instincts screamed at him to be cautious. He had trusted her enough to let her repair his ship. But now, with the Orsay's involvement, it was clear that the stakes had become much higher. "What do you suggest we do?" Evan asked, his voice tight with tension. "Don't respond to the distress call," she said quickly. "It's too dangerous. We'll need to shut down the comms and move quickly. I can take us to a different location on the planet. Somewhere the Orsay won't be able to track us." Evan hesitated. It didn't sit right with him, the idea of ignoring another human call for help. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized that if the Orsay were really involved, responding could be the worst mistake he could make. He glanced at the alien girl, her face unreadable as she waited for his decision. "Okay," he said, his voice firm. "We'll follow your plan." She nodded, moving swiftly to the control panel. The hum of the ship grew louder as she shut down the comms. Evan felt a pang of guilt, knowing he was leaving another human behind, perhaps forever. But survival had to come first. He had no idea how the Orsai would react, but he couldn't risk getting caught in their trap. Suddenly, the ship trembled as a new set of readings popped up on the screen. Evan's heart raced again. The alien girl's eyes flickered to the display, her expression hardening. "They found us," she said, almost to herself. "They've detected the signal. They're on their way." Evan's stomach dropped. "How long do we have?" "Not long," she answered, her voice steady but urgent. "Prepare yourself. We're leaving now, and we can't afford any mistakes." As she activated the ship's engines, the hum grew louder, shaking the ship beneath them. The air felt thick with tension. Evan couldn't help but wonder if this was the right move, or if they were already walking into another trap. The alien girl had been his only hope so far, but now, everything was moving so fast, he barely had time to think. One thing was certain. The danger had only just begun. Unexpected allies. The ship jerked violently as the alien girl engaged the engines, sending Evan stumbling forward. He caught himself on the console, his heart pounding in his chest. The planet outside grew distant, the once ominous terrain now shrinking into a small dot in the vast darkness of space. But the sense of impending doom only intensified. "Hold on," the alien girl called, her voice calm but tense as she expertly maneuvered the ship through the lower atmosphere, weaving through jagged peaks and dense clouds. She wasn't just trying to escape. The way she navigated the ship suggested she knew exactly where to go. Evan barely had time to steady himself before he noticed a blinking light on the control panel. A new transmission was coming through, and it wasn't coming from Earth. The girl quickly reached over and turned down the volume, just as the distorted voice broke through the static. "Unknown ship detected. Identify yourself. Please respond. We've been waiting." The signals. Evan's breath caught in his throat. It sounded like another human, another survivor. The voice was barely audible, strained, as if the speaker was exhausted and on the verge of collapse. It reminded him of the desperation he had heard in the earlier distress call. But this one, it was different. This wasn't a command or a distress signal. It was a plea for help, a desperate call from a stranded soul. "Is this another human?" Evan asked, his voice sharp with both curiosity and growing anxiety. The alien girl's hand froze over the console for a moment before she turned to face him. Her eyes flickered with something. Suspicion, perhaps, or wariness. "There are no other humans here," she said softly, her voice distant. "Not where we are going." The words sent a chill down Evan's spine. Why was she so certain? Did she already know what awaited them? Or was she hiding something else? Before Evan could ask more, the alien girl's focus returned to the controls. She flipped a series of switches, turning off the communication system, and the static stopped immediately. The ship surged forward as she pushed the throttle to its maximum speed, diving into the cold void of space. Evan sat back in his seat, still processing what had just happened. The distress signal had come from a human. That much he was sure of. But the alien's response was unsettling. Had the message been a trap too? Could this human be connected to the Orsai somehow? Suddenly, the alien girl spoke again, her tone sharper than before. "We are heading to an old outpost. A safe place for now. No one can find us there, not for a while." Evan raised an eyebrow. "You know a safe place?" She nodded. "I've been to many places, but this one is different. It's hidden." Evan's suspicion grew. If this alien girl truly wanted to help him, why was she keeping so many secrets? Why was everything shrouded in mystery? The ship began to slow as they approached a hidden moon orbiting a gas giant. The moon was small, barely noticeable, and the environment was harsh, covered in craggy mountains and deep valleys. It didn't look like the kind of place anyone would want to hide, but it was perfect for that very reason. The alien girl brought the ship down smoothly, touching down in a secluded valley surrounded by towering cliffs. The view outside the window was breathtaking in its desolation. Evan couldn't help but feel the weight of isolation pressing down on him as the last of the ship's engines powered down. "We're here," she said, her voice softer now, almost relieved. "This is where we'll be safe, for now." Even stood and stretched, his legs stiff from the long journey. "Safe? From the Orsai?" "Yes," the alien girl replied, her expression hardening again. "But not for long. They know we're on this planet." The silence in the cockpit was thick with tension. Even glanced out the viewport again, scanning the barren landscape. His thoughts were interrupted by a sudden movement from behind. He spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. A figure stepped from the shadows of the ship's cargo hold and even froze. It was a man, but not like any human he had seen before. His clothing was strange, faded, weathered military gear, but it was his eyes that stood out. They were wild, desperate, with a coldness that sent a shiver down Evan's spine. The man raised his hands in a gesture of peace, but his eyes never left the alien girl. "You brought him here. You actually brought him here." His voice was rough, ragged, as if he hadn't spoken in days. Even took a step back, trying to make sense of the situation. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice guarded. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned his gaze to the alien girl, his expression hardening. "You don't know what you've done. Bringing him here, you've just signed his death warrant." The alien girl's eyes narrowed, her posture stiffening as if preparing for a fight. "This is not your decision. He is not your responsibility anymore." Evan's mind raced. What was going on? Who was this man? And why did he look so angry? What did he mean by death warrant? The man's gaze finally shifted to Evan. "You're the fool who's going to bring the Orsai here, aren't you? Just by being alive, just by being here, you're the bait they need to find us. You've doomed us all." Evan took a step forward, his anger flaring. "I'm not the one who brought the Orsai to this planet. I'm just trying to survive." The man let out a bitter laugh, his eyes filled with contempt. "Survival? You think you can just run from them? From us? You're in the wrong place at the wrong time." Before Evan could respond, the alien girl spoke again, her voice low and commanding. "Enough. He is not part of this war, yet. We will deal with him later. For now, he will stay." The man's eyes flickered with rage, but he remained silent, glaring at Evan for a long moment before turning away. The alien girl stepped between them, her body a silent barrier. Evan stood frozen, his mind spinning. The tension between the two was palpable, and the man's anger was only a small part of it. There was something about the situation, something deep and unspoken, that he didn't fully understand. The alien girl turned to him once more, her gaze softening, though her words were sharp. "You don't belong here, but for now, you are an ally, and you will need us, if you want to survive." Evan didn't know what to make of it all. He didn't know who to trust, this angry man or the alien who seemed to know more than she was letting on. But one thing was certain, his survival was no longer about just getting away from the Orsai. It was about navigating a web of lies, deception, and alliances that could change everything. And as the alien girl led him deeper into the hidden outpost, Evan couldn't shake the feeling that the answers he sought would not come easily, and that the price for those answers might be higher than he could afford. The truth unveiled. Evan woke to an eerie silence. The outpost, hidden deep within the cliffs of the barren moon, was far colder than he had anticipated. He shivered under the thin blanket he had been given, the sharp scent of metal and dust filling the air. The dim light of the moon filtered through cracks in the rocky walls of the outpost, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch into infinity. He had spent the last few hours trying to make sense of everything. The tension between the alien girl and the strange man, who seemed to resent his very presence, was still heavy on his mind. The outpost was old, abandoned even, yet it held secrets. Evan could feel it. There was more to this place, more to the alien girl than she had told him. As he stood up and stretched, a noise from outside caught his attention. The door to the small room opened with a creak, and the alien girl entered, her presence as commanding as ever. She was wearing a different suit now, more suited for the harsh environment outside, with its dull, metallic surface reflecting the pale light. "Get up," she said, her voice sharp. "We need to talk." Even nodded, following her outside. The bitter cold of the moon's surface hit him immediately, and he instinctively wrapped his arms around his chest. He had to admit, this place felt off. Something about it didn't sit right, as if the land itself was hiding something. They walked in silence for a while, the only sound the crunch of their boots on the icy ground. The outpost was built into the side of a jagged cliff, its buildings partially buried beneath years of weathering and neglect. But as they approached a large metallic door embedded in the side of the cliff, Even realized that there was something more to this place than just an abandoned refuge. The alien girl stopped in front of the door, placing her hand on a small panel. The door opened with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit hallway that stretched into the heart of the mountain. Even hesitated for a moment, but followed her inside, the darkness swallowing him whole. They passed several rooms, their walls lined with strange alien technology that he couldn't begin to understand. Finally, they reached a large, circular chamber. At the center, a glowing, blue orb hovered in midair, casting an eerie light across the room. Around the orb were several consoles, their surfaces covered in alien markings that Even couldn't decipher. The alien girl walked toward the orb, her eyes focused on it with an intensity that was almost unnerving. She reached out and placed a hand on its surface. The orb pulsed, and a series of images flashed across its surface: stars, planets, ships, and finally, a human face. Evan's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the face. It was Commander Ella, the same woman from the distress signal. "Is this a recording?" he asked, his voice tight with disbelief. The alien girl nodded slowly, her eyes never leaving the orb. "This is more than just a recording. This is a message, and you need to understand the truth." Even took a step forward, his heart pounding. "What truth? Who are you really?" The alien girl turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "My name is Lyra. I am not just a repair worker, not just a survivor. I am a part of something much larger, a group called the Syndicate of the Stars." Even blinked in confusion. "The Syndicate of the Stars?" Lyra nodded, her gaze intense. "We are a collective of various alien species, brought together by the need to survive the Orsai. We are their targets, just as you are. But the difference is, we have fought them before. We know how to survive." Even swallowed hard. "And Commander Ella, what's her connection to all of this?" Lyra's eyes softened, but her voice remained steady. "Commander Ella was once a member of the Syndicate, a leader in our efforts against the Orsai. But something went wrong. A betrayal. She was captured by the Orsai, and we lost contact with her for years. Until the signal." The orb flickered, and the image of Ella's face shifted. Her voice, distorted and faint, echoed through the room. "The Syndicate. They think they can protect you, but they cannot. The Orsai are everywhere. We've been outmaneuvered. They've infiltrated our ranks. Lyra, she will betray you. She's not who you think she is. You cannot trust her." Evan's chest tightened as the image of Commander Ella's warning flashed across the orb. He turned to Lyra, his eyes searching her face for any hint of guilt or deception. "You," he stammered, "you betrayed them." Lyra's expression remained calm, but there was something deeper in her gaze, something that made Even wonder if he had been wrong about everything. "I did what I had to do," she replied, her voice cold. "I did what was necessary to survive. The Syndicate could not stop the Orsai. They failed." Even felt a sickening feeling in his gut. He couldn't understand it. Lyra had seemed like his ally, the one person who could help him. But now he realized that there was far more to her than just a helpful guide. She wasn't just a survivor. She was a key player in a much larger, much darker game. "You're telling me," he said, his voice shaking with anger and disbelief, "that the Syndicate failed, and you You betrayed them. Lyra's gaze softened for the briefest moment, but her next words were sharp and unwavering. The Orsai are not what you think. They are not just a ruthless species. They have been manipulating the galaxy for centuries, and the Syndicate was always in the way. Even felt his mind racing. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, but they didn't make sense. Lyra had helped him survive, but now he was beginning to wonder if she had been manipulating him all along. She had led him to this remote outpost, offered her help, and fixed his ship, but was it all part of her plan? "What do you want from me?" Even asked, his voice low with suspicion. Lyra turned to face him, her eyes narrowing. "I want you to understand. You are part of something much bigger than yourself now. The Orsai will come for you. For me, for all of us. And you must make a choice, stand with me, or die alone." The weight of her words hit Avon like a punch to the gut. His mind was spinning, trying to piece together what he had just learned. The Syndicate, the betrayal, the Orsai's manipulation, it was all too much. But one thing was clear, he was no longer just a stranded human. He was caught in a war that spanned galaxies, and his survival was no longer just a matter of escaping the Orsai. It was about choosing who to trust in a universe where nothing was as it seemed. As the orb flickered one last time, a final image appeared, one that Even would never forget. It was the face of Commander Ella, not from the past, but from the present, and her eyes were filled with regret, as if she had been wrong about everything. And for the first time, Even realized the true cost of survival. There was no easy way out. A dangerous choice. The room fell silent after Lyra's words, the air heavy with the weight of the truth she had just revealed. Even could feel the tension building in his chest, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. He had thought that surviving the Orsai and fixing his ship would be enough, that if he just followed Lyra's lead, he'd make it out alive. But now, everything had shifted. The stakes were higher. There was no simple escape. Even glanced at the orb one last time, where the face of Commander Ella still lingered, her eyes filled with sorrow and regret. Her warning echoed in his mind. "Lyra, she will betray you. She's not who you think she is." He turned to face her, his heart pounding in his chest. The anger was rising, but so was the confusion. You're saying I have to choose now. To side with you. To fight the Orsai. But why? What's your end game here, Lyra? She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, her voice steady. Survival is not a choice, Even. It's a necessity. The Orsai are everywhere, and they will find us. They will destroy us if we don't act. The Syndicate tried to fight them, but they were too slow, too divided. We are stronger together, but only if you accept the truth. Even's mind raced. He had come to trust Lyra. She was his lifeline on this alien world, the one who had repaired his ship and promised a way out. But now he was being asked to trust her even more, to make an alliance that could be his downfall. Her calm demeanor, her calculated words, only made him feel more uncertain. Could she be right? Was this the only way to survive? "I don't know if I can trust you," Even admitted, his voice strained. "You've told me so many things, but I'm not sure what's true anymore." Commander Ella said. Lyra's eyes darkened at the mention of Ella's name. Ella's warning means nothing. She was one of the ones who failed us. She couldn't see the bigger picture. "I've been in the shadows for too long, Even. I've seen what the Orsai are truly capable of." Even clenched his fists, torn between his desire to believe her and his instinct to distrust her. He didn't know what the Syndicate had been. He had no way of knowing if Lyra was right about everything. But the Orsai were real, and their relentless pursuit was something he had seen with his own eyes. The question now wasn't about whether or not they could survive. It was whether they could survive together. "But what if you're wrong?" Even asked, his voice quieter now. "What if betraying the Syndicate wasn't the answer? What if this war you're leading is just another mistake?" Lyra's gaze softened for the briefest moment, but there was a sharp edge in her voice as she replied. "It's not a mistake, even. If you think you can just hide, you're wrong. You'll be dead before you even have a chance to fight back." The Syndicate thought they could contain the Orsai with their tactics and alliances, but they were too slow, too divided. The galaxy doesn't have time for that anymore. Even took a step back, his mind reeling. Everything about the last few hours, the warnings, the betrayals, nothing was simple. He had always imagined himself as a survivor, someone who could fight against whatever challenges space threw his way. But now, everything was blurred. Was Lyra truly offering the only chance they had, or was this another deception? He didn't have the answers, but his gut told him that making the wrong choice would be fatal. There was no turning back. He needed to decide. "What's your plan?" Even asked, his voice steady despite the storm of thoughts swirling in his mind. Lyra straightened, her expression hardening. "We're not safe here. The Orsai are already tracking our movements. They know we're on this moon. We have to move quickly, but not just away from them, towards something they don't expect, a place where they can't reach us." Even raised an eyebrow. "And where is that?" "A hidden base, a facility where we can regroup and fight back. It's an old outpost, far from the Orsai's reach. But getting there will be difficult." Evan's heart skipped a beat. A hidden base. That was what he had hoped for when he followed Lyra in the first place. It could be their only chance at survival, but something about the way she said it, the urgency in her voice, told him that this wouldn't be an easy mission. And trusting her, especially now, felt like a gamble. "We don't have time," Lyra said, her eyes hardening with determination. "I'm leaving soon. You can come with me, or you can stay here. But know this. If you stay, the Orsai will find you, and you'll die alone." Evan's mind raced as he considered his options. Part of him wanted to run, to find another way out, but the cold reality of the situation was undeniable. If the Orsai found him now, he would be finished. His only chance at survival lay in following Lyra, and hoping that her plan would lead to something more than just another betrayal. "I'm with you," he said finally, his voice steady. He knew it was a risk, but it was the only chance he had. Lyra nodded, a brief flicker of approval in her eyes, before she turned toward the door. "Good. We leave immediately." As they made their way back to the ship, Even couldn't shake the feeling that he was stepping into something far darker than he could have imagined. His instincts told him that this was the right choice, but deep down, he couldn't help but wonder. If Lyra was really telling the truth, why did everything feel so wrong? The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: Even had crossed a line. There was no going back now. Whatever happened, he was committed, but the question lingered in the back of his mind. Would this dangerous choice lead to salvation or destruction? The final stand. Evan's heart hammered in his chest as he followed Lyra through the narrow corridors of the hidden base. The walls, made of cold, gray metal, seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. The air smelled of dust and something else, something ancient. The base had been abandoned for years, but it was still functional, still hiding secrets of the past. Yet the deeper they moved into its heart, the more Even felt like he was stepping into a tomb, a place where survival wasn't guaranteed. The rhythmic sound of their footsteps echoed in the empty halls. Every corner they turned revealed more and more evidence of the base's age, its wear and tear. But at the same time, there was an undeniable strength in its foundation. Whoever had built this place had done so with the intention of keeping something, or someone, safe. Lyra led him through a series of dimly lit rooms, the air growing colder as they descended further into the depths of the base. Her steps were sure, confident, but Even couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She had promised that this place would be their sanctuary, but the tension in the air was palpable. He couldn't help but wonder if they were being led into another trap, if everything had been a manipulation from the start. Finally, they arrived at a large, circular chamber. The walls were lined with strange equipment and consoles, many of them unfamiliar to Even. At the center of the room stood a massive holographic projector, its core glowing faintly. Lyra walked up to it, her hand brushing across a series of buttons. The projector flickered to life, and a map of the galaxy appeared in midair. Evan's eyes widened as he saw the map. Stars, planets, a vast network of lines connecting them all, forming a complex web that spanned the galaxy. At the heart of it was a massive red dot, the Orsai stronghold. He could feel the weight of its significance pressing down on him. "This is where it ends," Lyra said quietly, her voice steady but tinged with something darker. "This is the Orsai's base of operations. They think they control everything, but they're wrong. We're going to take it from them." Evan stared at the map, his thoughts spinning. Take it from them. The Orsai had nearly destroyed him. They had relentlessly hunted down every human they could find. And now they were entrenched in the heart of the galaxy. How could he, even begin to fight back? "You want me to help you attack the Orsai?" Evan asked, his voice incredulous. "I'm not a soldier, Lyra. I'm just a guy trying to survive." She turned to face him, her eyes burning with determination. "That's exactly why you're here. You're not like them. You don't know how they think. You're an outsider, and that's the key. The Orsai have grown too confident, too predictable. We have to strike them when they least expect it." Evan shook his head, trying to make sense of her words. "And what makes you think I'm going to help you? You've told me so much, but I don't know if I can trust you anymore. I don't know who you really are, what your endgame is. You say you want to fight the Orsai, but is that what's really going on here?" Lyra's gaze softened for the briefest moment, but the hardness returned quickly. "I didn't choose this fight, Evan. It's been thrust upon me, just like it's been thrust upon you. We all have our reasons for fighting, but we can't do it alone." Evan felt the weight of her words sink in. He had been running for so long, trying to avoid the Orsai, trying to survive. But survival, he realized, meant more than just staying alive. It meant making choices, taking risks, and sometimes those choices didn't come with easy answers. "I'm not asking you to trust me," Lyra continued, her voice almost pleading now. "I'm asking you to trust the cause. The Orsai will come for us all, no matter what we do. This is our only chance to stop them, to show them that they're not invincible." Evan felt a surge of anger rise up in him. He was tired of being caught in the middle of other people's wars, tired of being forced to choose sides. But he had made his choice when he had trusted Lyra, when he had decided to come here. He wasn't going to back down now, not when the stakes were this high. "I'll help you," he said finally, his voice firm. "But if this goes wrong, don't expect me to follow you blindly." Lyra's lips curled into a small, tight smile. "That's all I ask. We're in this together now, Evan. Whatever happens, we fight." The holographic map flickered, and the Orsai stronghold blinked ominously at the center of the galaxy. It felt like the entire universe was watching, holding its breath, waiting to see if the humans could rise up against their oppressors. As they made their way back to the ship, Evan couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into the heart of darkness. The Orsai were coming, and they would stop at nothing to destroy them. The mission ahead would be dangerous, more dangerous than anything he had ever faced. But Evan had made his choice. He wasn't going to let fear control them anymore. The final stand was coming. And no matter what happened, he would fight with everything he had. The question wasn't whether they could defeat the Orsai. It was whether they could survive the cost of their victory. As the ship's engines roared to life, propelling them toward the heart of enemy territory, Evan stared out at the stars ahead. The universe seemed vast and indifferent, but in that moment, it felt like everything was on the line. The fight for survival had only just begun, and Evan West was ready to face it head-on.